and thank you for joining this short professional development session. My name is Guillermo Uribe, and today I will be sharing several practical formative assessment strategies that can increase student engagement in 7th grade life science classrooms. So these strategies, they're designed to help teachers monitor learning in real time and make adjustments that support student success, rather than just give end test at a unit. This adjusts learning in real time. So student engagement is at the forefront of everything, especially in middle school. You have to keep students engaged. When they're actively involved in learning, they are more likely to retain information, they participate more, they develop confidence, especially in scientific concepts. Particularly in my class, discussion-based questions happen a lot of the time, and that's one way I like to maintain a lot of engagement, especially. So formative assessment, this supports engagement because it allows teachers to continuously check for understanding and adjust instruction during the learning process rather than just waiting until the end of a lesson or a unit. And this goes into the idea of formative versus summative assessments. So formative assessment, it's different than summative assessment in both purpose and timing. Summative assessments, they evaluate learning, but until after the unit has been completed or after the chapter has been completed. Whereas formative assessments, they take place during instruction and help teachers identify misconceptions early on. And this allows immediate adjustments to happen. So there's a few different strategies I want to highlight. My go-to, one of the ones that I always use, is exit tickets. So what is an exit ticket? It provides basically a quick snapshot of understanding at the end of a lesson. So I can either have this do it in their notebooks and I'll go ahead and check at the end of class, or I'll create it a separate worksheet. Sometimes I might even grade them. And this basically tells me if they understand the lesson or they don't. So an example, after a lesson on cell organelles, I might just put up a question that says, okay, which organelle controls all cell activities? And they'll have a few minutes to work on it silently. Um, and this is a very good method of me knowing did people understand it, did they not? And I might even adjust and have to do a reteach the next day, depending on the feedback that I get. Very good in terms of just gauging student understanding. Another powerful strategy is the use of hinge questions. So what are hinge questions? They're asked in a critical point of the lesson to determine whether students are ready to continue learning new material. So an example, during a lesson on cell structure, I might ask which cell structure allows materials to move in and out of the cell. So I might do this as a turn and talk. I might do this as also like a checkbook. They'll write it down in the notebooks and I'll have them check it as well. So this tells me, okay, do I continue or do I take a little bit more time on this? Maybe do a show call as well, where I'll get one of the student responses and post it at the front of the classroom, have students compare and contrast, see what additional information can be added, um, and how we can understand the lesson better. And then there's also descriptive feedback. So for descriptive feedback, um, instead of simply just marking answers correct or incorrect, this helps students understand what they did as well and what they can improve upon. So, um, a feedback statement I might put on an assignment or on a test may look something like this, where it says, you correctly identified the nucleus as the control center. Now I want you to explain how the cell membrane supports self-survival. So it might be something to build upon. It might be also an area where students can get confused between the two. So a feedback statement could be, and this is just going on another topic, it could be something like cell division, the difference between mitosis and meiosis, where typically students sometimes will confuse the two. So I might put a description saying, okay, mitosis is basic cell division, meiosis is for gametes. So that descriptive feedback, especially in a class as abstract as science, it goes a long way and it definitely helps a lot. So This is an example that I'm going to give, and this is for the lesson topic on cell theory. So, an example, during a lesson on cell theory, you can use a hinge question midway through the lesson to check understanding, provide descriptive feedback during the lab activity as well, which should go hand in hand with the lesson. And then the lesson can finish either that same day or the following day with an exit ticket. And with those three tools, now you have a clear indication of which students understood the lesson, which students did not, which students need to go back and review this a little more, maybe which students might be referenced for tutoring. This is just very good data to have. And when we get to that summative assessment, I have a pretty good indication of who's very likely to excel on the test and who needs a little bit more of a push and who needs to constantly go back and review that material. So, how does this impact student engagement? So, this increases student engagement because it helps students understand learning and expectations and it tracks their own progress. So, when they receive regular feedback and opportunities to demonstrate understanding, students become more active participants in the learning process. And this leads to stronger confidence, more motivation, and just greater ownership of their own learning. So, how can we implement this? I would say first to start small. Nothing too grand. It could be maybe just one exit ticket per day, and then the next day you can implement a hinge question instead because trying to implement all of them can be a little bit of a challenge at first. And there's so many things that go on a daily basis that it can be very difficult to keep up with. But slowly over time, the implementation of these, it's going to help tremendously. And it's going to give you a ton of feedback that you can use for yourself and tailor to your lessons. And these are the references that go along and are supported in this lesson. Um, and thank you for your time. I hope this is of use for your classes.